In today's tutorial, we are tackling the single crochet decrease. If you'd like a detailed walkthrough of the single crochet stitch itself, I've linked my full single crochet tutorial below. But for today's lesson, the important thing to remember is this. A decrease takes 2 stitches and turns them into 1. That's what allows us to shape our crochet projects. Whether you are narrowing the top of a hat or shaping a garment, or giving an amigurumi its lovely round form, decreases help us gradually make the fabric smaller but in a controlled way. So for example, if you start a round with 24 stitches and you work 6 decreases along that round, you'll finish with 18 stitches at the end. We are going to look at 4 different ways to decrease: the regular single crochet decrease, the invisible decrease, the decrease when working in front loops only, and the decrease when working in back loops only. I'll show you exactly how to do each one, explain when to use them, and point out the differences so you can choose the right method for your project. So grab your yarn and your hook and let's get started. Let's get started. So let's start with the traditional decrease. You'll often see this written in patterns like sc2 together, which simply means single crochet 2 together. And here's how you work it. You insert your hook into that first stitch, you pull up a loop, you have 2 loops on your hook, you insert your hook into the next stitch and pull up a loop, then you'll have 3 loops on your hook, you yarn over and pull through all loops on your hook, and there you have a decrease. And that's it. You've turned 2 stitches into 1 stitch. So let's do that again slowly. You insert your hook, pull up a loop, you have 2 loops on your hook, insert in the next stitch, pull up a loop, you'll have 3 loops on your hook. You yarn over and pull through all 3 stitches, and there you have it. That creates 1 decrease. So this regular decrease is very simple and effective, but after you go for a couple of rows, you'll notice that it leaves gaps. You don't even need to go for a couple of rows. You can just see it as you've worked. You can see the gap that has formed over here and another gap over there. Compared to how tight the single crochet stitches are to how this decrease is, you can just see the gap. And for many projects, that's perfectly fine, especially if gaps is what you're looking for. Maybe you're working a scarf or a blanket or even many accessories. That's the look you're going for, and this method works beautifully. But with amigurumi, where stuffing can sometimes peek through the tiny gaps like that, we often prefer another option because this isn't gonna cut it. And that brings us to the invisible decrease. The invisible decrease is especially popular in amigurumi, as I've said. Instead of working through both loops of each stitch as we did in the regular decrease, we are only going through the front loops. And this creates a smoother decrease that's much harder to see. And here's how you do it. So you look at your next 2 stitches and find the front loop of the stitch. The front loop is always the loop that's closest to you. And in this case, these are the front loops right here, and these ones are the back loops. So find the front loop of the first stitch, which is this one over here. So you insert it, and without removing your hook, you immediately insert it through the front loop of the next stitch, like that. You now have 2 front loops on your hook, this one and this one. You yarn over and pull that through both front loops, like that. Yarn over again and pull through both. So let's do that again. Through the front loop of the first stitch, through the front loop of the next stitch, yarn over, pull through those front loops, yarn over and pull through. Now, why is it called an invisible decrease? First, if you compare it to the regular decrease, you'll notice that the front of the work stays much smoother than this one. The stitches blend together more naturally, and the decrease becomes difficult to spot because, as you can see, the decrease itself looks like a single crochet right over here, as opposed to this one, which creates a different shape. And over here, between this decrease and this one, there's no gap that has formed, as compared to this one, where you can see a very visible gap forming there. So you can see no gap, gap. Now let's talk about decreases when a pattern specifically tells you to work in front loops only. In that case, we need to stay consistent and continue working in the front loops. That's actually what the pattern is saying. everything that you're working, you need to work in the front loops. So even the decrease that you need to work needs to be worked in the front loops only. Patterns often use these front loop sections to create folds and edges or decorative edges or shaping detail. You can either choose to do the regular decrease or the invisible decrease, and I'm going to show you both. So first, with the invisible decrease, you're going to insert your hook through that first stitch, insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. You have 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, and pull through both. It works similar to the invisible decrease, and you can see the consistency is maintained. You can also work a regular decrease in front loops only by inserting your hook through the stitch, yarning over, bringing up a loop, inserting through the next stitch, yarn over and bring up a loop. Again, only in the front loops of that stitch. You'll have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through. So depending on what you're going for and what the pattern calls for, whether you want visible holes in your pattern or where you'd like it to be more seamless, you'll choose whether to use the regular decrease in the front loops or the invisible decrease in the front loops. Finally, let's look at decreasing in the back loops only. So this is the front loop right here, and this one is the back loop. You can see the single crochet stitches that I've worked so far, I've worked in the back loop. If a pattern has you working in back loops only, so you will again have the option of working a regular decrease in the back loop or an invisible decrease in the back loop. So insert your hook into the back loop and pull up a stitch. Insert your hook into the next back loop and pull up a stitch. You'll have 3 loops on your hook. This is a regular decrease. You'll yarn over and pull through all 3 loops, and you've got yourself a decrease right over there. Now if you want to work the invisible decrease, you'll insert your hook into the next back loop stitch and into the next one like that, so that you have 2 back loops on your hook like that. You yarn over, you bring up the loop, you'll have 2 loops on your hook, you yarn over, pull through both loops on your hook. And you've noticed with the regular decrease, you'll have 3 loops on your hook before the final yarn over and pull through. And with the invisible decrease, you'll have 2 loops on your hook before the final yarn over and pull through. Here is the invisible and here is the regular decrease. Again, you can get to choose whether to do the regular or the invisible, and the only thing that changes between this and the front loop technique is again the loop you're working into. You need to remember that a decrease combines 2 stitches into 1 stitch. So don't finish your stitch before entering the second stitch, whether you're working a regular decrease or an invisible decrease. Because decreases reduce your stitch count, it's easy to accidentally end up with too many or too few stitches. A stitch marker can be extremely helpful with this, especially when you're working in continuous rounds like with the Amigurumi. Make sure that you've marked your stitches so that you know how many decreases you've actually worked in a particular round. And when working in front loops or back loops, you need to take a moment to identify the correct loop before inserting your hook. Rushing is often what causes mistakes there. And yes, I say that as someone who has confidently crocheted entire rounds only to realize I was using the wrong loop the whole time. Again, crochet humbled you. So as a quick guide, you can use the regular decrease for most general crochet projects. Use invisible decrease for amigurumi or stuffed toys or whenever you're working in the round. Use front loop decreases whenever your pattern specifically calls for front loop only work. And use back loop decreases whenever your pattern specifically calls for back loop only work. The best decrease is usually the one that matches the construction of the pattern, as I said. So whether the pattern calls for holes, you can get away with using the regular decrease. If a pattern is going to be stuffed, you definitely need to use the invisible decrease in that one. So you need to gauge the pattern, look at the design, and decide what to actually use.